I'm gonna need you all to stay back while we secure the area.
But we live just down the road. What's going on?
Morning breeze carried the faint scent of freshly cut hay. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, calm, bright, and harmless, but the peace was shattered when a small barefoot girl burst out of a broken wooden gate, sprinting toward a group of bikers parked near a roadside food stall. Her thin arms pumped desperately, her cheeks streaked with tears, and her voice cracked with terror as she choked out a plea that cut through the entire atmosphere like a siren. She kept stumbling, her breath ragged, her small figure trembling as she approached the hardened men who stood leaning on their heavy motorcycles. The bikers looked tough, worn by miles and years. But even they straightened as the little girl collapsed at their feet. Her words, filled with fear and urgency, changed everything. "They're hurting my mama." In the bright daylight, under a clear blue sky, a life-changing decision was about to be made. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel kindly tube. Your support truly helps stories of hope reach more hearts. The girl's name was Mara, only 8 years old, her dress dust-covered and torn, her knees scraped from running across gravel. The bikers belonged to a local riding group known as the Iron Vine Brotherhood, rough on the outside, but carrying their own hidden pasts and heavy histories. Their leader, a tall, quiet man named Rowan, was just locking up his bike when Mara grabbed onto his jeans with shaking hands. He could feel the urgency radiating from her small body. Mara's chest heaved as she tried to breathe out the terror still trapped inside her ribs. She kept glancing back toward the distant farmhouse she had come from, a simple structure that sat in the open field like a helpless target. Rowan, who had spent years trying to outrun his own past mistakes, felt something shift inside him the moment he saw the fear in her eyes. The Brotherhood members exchanged uncertain looks, unsure if they were about to step into something dangerous. But Rowan already knew. He had seen too many children in his youth who had no one standing up for them. He wasn't going to turn away from another one, not this time. As Mara struggled to explain what had happened, Rowan knelt beside her to steady her breaths. Through broken sentences, she revealed that 2 men had arrived early that morning, men her mother knew but had always feared. They had come demanding money her mother didn't owe, threatening her when she stood up to them, and when she tried to protect Mara, the men turned violent. Mara had escaped through a back door, running across the field barefoot, hoping to find anyone who could help. She hadn't expected to find bikers, she didn't even know what bikers were. She only saw adults who looked strong. Rowan stood up slowly and turned to his group. These were men who had once lived rough lives. Some were former troublemakers, some recovering from addictions, some trying to rebuild families they'd nearly lost. They all knew what it meant to face something painful and real. Without debating, without questioning, Rowan nodded, and the Brotherhood responded instinctively, pulling their helmets over their heads. Mara's small hand stayed on Rowan's glove, her eyes wide with hope and dread. Rowan lifted her gently onto his bike, promising she would not be left alone again, and the engines roared through the sunny countryside as they made their way to the farmhouse. When they arrived, everything looked deceptively peaceful. The midday sun cast warm light across the farmland, the wind stirred the tall grass, and birds chirped from the fence posts. But Rowan could feel the tension even before he stepped off the bike. The farmhouse door was open, hanging crooked on its hinges, and the living room inside showed signs of a struggle. A chair overturned. A picture frame broken. Footprints on the dusty wooden floor. In that bright daylight, the shadows seemed more disturbing than if it had all been hidden in darkness. They found Mara's mother, Liana, in the back room. She was bruised, holding her stomach, trying to stand but in too much pain. She was a young single mother with gentle eyes that had clearly seen too much hardship already. Still, she had tried to fight, tried to protect her daughter, and the effort showed in the injuries along her arms. She was terrified when she first saw the bikers step into her home, but Mara rushed into her arms before she could react in fear. The way Liana clutched her daughter told Rowan everything he needed to know about this woman's strength and heart. Liana whispered apologies to Mara for everything she had endured that morning, blaming herself. Though she was the one who had fought hardest, Rowan helped her sit down carefully while another biker, Theo, called for medical assistance. As Liana explained that the men had taken her savings, threatened to come back, and claimed she owed them interest for a loan she never even received, Rowan felt something old rise inside him, a fierce need to defend people who had no one left to call. These men weren't debt collectors, they were predators. And predators thrived when no one fought back. Rowan listened quietly, absorbing every detail. Liana kept insisting she didn't want trouble, that she didn't want the bikers to get hurt because of her. Rowan remembered saying the same thing years ago, before life forced him to face the truth. Sometimes trouble finds you whether you ask for it or not. And sometimes, you need someone stronger to stand with you. Rowan assured her she didn't have to face this alone, not today. While waiting for the ambulance, Mara sat close beside her mother, gripping her hand as though afraid she might disappear. The bikers stood guard outside, scanning the road in case the men returned. Rowan made a quiet vow to himself that this family would never feel unprotected again. He had watched too many good people get torn down by cruel ones. Here was a chance, maybe even a calling, to right a wrong that had gone too far. After the paramedics arrived and took Liana for treatment, Rowan and the Brotherhood began digging deeper into what happened. Theo, who had contacts in town, recognized the description of the two men. They were known locally as petty enforcers who exploited vulnerable families with fake loan schemes. Many residents feared them. No one stood up to them because they operated in the open, believing no one would dare challenge them. But Rowan's group didn't operate by fear. They operated by loyalty and a belief that everyone deserved protection. The following day, under the bright afternoon sun, Rowan and his men found the two enforcers hanging around an auto yard behind town. Rowan didn't approach them with violence. He approached them with a calm but unyielding presence that was far more intimidating. The men tried to mock them at first, but the Brotherhood formed a solid line behind Rowan, and their collective silence spoke louder than threats. Rowan explained that he knew what they had done to Liana and Mara, and he demanded they return every penny they had taken. When the men laughed, Rowan simply stepped closer, his shadow falling over them in the daylight. It wasn't anger in his face, it was unshakable resolve. The kind that made even men who lived off intimidation shrink back in doubt. Eventually, the enforcers realized they were outmatched, not just by strength but by something deeper, by men who were united by purpose, not fear. They reluctantly handed over the stolen money and backed away, knowing they had crossed the wrong people this time. But Rowan wasn't done. He contacted a local officer he trusted, someone who had long suspected the group's exploitation but hadn't had concrete testimony. With Liana's permission, Rowan helped her file a report. The bikers vouched for her and for Mara. With evidence and pressure piling up, the men were taken in for investigation. For the first time in a long time, Liana felt justice working in her favor. Days later, when Liana returned home with her injuries healing, Rowan and the Brotherhood arrived to help repair her damaged house. The door was fixed, the broken furniture replaced, the yard cleaned. Under the warm afternoon sunlight, Mara helped by picking up broken picture frames while the bikers sanded and repainted the porch. She kept smiling shyly at them, especially at Rowan, whose steady presence had become a source of comfort. Rowan noticed she had begun to laugh again, small, gentle laughs that had been missing the day he found her running for help. Liana watched it all with quiet gratitude. She had always feared strangers, believing the world was full of people who took advantage of the weak. But seeing this group of unexpected protectors rebuild her world showed her something new. They weren't just bikers. They were proof that kindness could come from the most unlikely places, and that people with rough appearances could carry the greatest hearts. Rowan stayed last, ensuring the house was secure and the locks replaced. Liana thanked him softly, her voice steadier than before. She admitted she didn't know how to repay them. Rowan simply shook his head, saying she didn't need to repay anything. Protecting people like her was worth more than anything else. As he stepped outside, Mara hugged him tightly around the waist before he could get back on his bike. Her whisper was small but powerful. He had saved her mama. It was in that moment Rowan understood that helping this family hadn't just changed their lives, it had changed his. The Brotherhood had found purpose. And Rowan had found redemption in choosing kindness when it mattered most. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindly Tube.